if I don't know what I'm doing with the technical pieces, or if I don't believe in the process itself, it's very, very difficult for a student to take it seriously. That being said, I can be all into all the rest of it and still miss my audience.
Yeah.
Which is why I think, and I might have said this to you before, but I think that all teachers should have to take sales classes. Like our beginning of the year, where we're going to go and I'm going to sit through review of curriculum, here's how to use the new software, do this thing. Like, we should have sales consultants come in and teach us how to sell what we're peddling.
I used to train salespeople. When I got into a classroom, I right away was aware of how many tricks, techniques I used as a salesperson in the classroom to accomplish whatever my goals were. Now, they weren't necessarily, as I look back on this, accomplishing the students' goals, but they certainly...
yours or the school's goals.
Right.
You get good test scores.
Right. So, okay, so we still come down to that the status quo is better than the alternative.
No.
And maybe we can...
You have to define the alternative to say that.
Well,
But
my alternative I'm presenting is no
let them
school.
run wild.
No, actually not. That's what you are characterizing it
So,
as.
all right, so this is the point then, because we've gone over this twice and we haven't done it, and I'm pointing at the book that you have sitting here.
book I have, which is Unschooled by Carrie McDonald.
What is it again?
It's called Unschooled.
Carrie McDonald. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Did you go? I know you posted something about there was a talk about this or a seminar or something.
Yeah.
Did you go to it?
I did the webinar. It was at the Cato Institute.
Okay.
And I try to go there physically, but they also are gracious enough to do free web
and
broadcast.
So if we've got school as it is, and very few people would argue that school is as good as it could be or should be, or whatever.
And it could be very inimical too.
And then it may be the opposite of it. And then there's homeschooling, which carries on some of the same problems by, and I mean no offense to people who are homeschooling, but it's essentially a similar model carried on by people with less expertise in the subjects. I think you can homeschool well in elementary school. I don't think you can homeschool well in high school.
Except they're attuned to what their children.
Right, they're focused on the kid.
They're doing it as a parent. Now that doesn't mean every parent is a good parent.
My older sister thought about homeschooling her kids, but she did it at the end of middle school, and I said, you can do this all through elementary school and do a wonderful job. It takes a special person to do it in high school, unless you're working with a team where each parent can specialize, if you're trying to duplicate anything like your normal high school experience. Mm-hmm. And you can argue that we shouldn't do that, that's fine, but her goal was to essentially give them the high school education without making them go to school. And I said, you're great, they're great, but this is a really bad idea, because I'm a smart person, I couldn't do it. I could do English and history, I could do some of the biology. After that, I'm done.
Oh, it's like when I tutor.
I can't do math.
I'll tutor, any level of English and history, because I've lived through most of it at my age, and lie about the rest. Math, though, I refuse to relearn calculus and pre-calc.
Yeah.
I did it once, and I'm like, no.
And you can't. I think that's where your average parent who doesn't have any education background, teaching background, or maybe majored in something different in college or didn't go to college, I think it'd be very difficult to duplicate the learning you get in high school. And so the problems that we perceive with school, a lot of them carry over to homeschooling as well. But you're saying that unschooling is not the same thing.
Right. Okay, so a few weeks back, a Broad Run graduate, she left, I think about 6 years ago. She and I had gotten together. I think it had it was around debate. She was a debater. She's now working for a consultant. She went to Brown University. And at some point when she was in high school, I learned that she had been homeschooled, and I'm doing air quotes again here, and up until about 8th grade. And then she came to Broad Run. And we talked a little bit about it at the time, because I'm always curious what other people's experiences are.
Right.
How did you arrive at where you are, and how does that affect to where you're going? But I never delved into it completely until I really started thinking or learned more about unschooling. And I remembered something she had told me, that the only thing that her family focused on was that she passed the county assessments every year. And I remember her saying that her mother just let her do whatever she wanted.
Right.
But you had to pass the assessment just so that we could keep doing homeschooling.
Right.
Okay.
We're
Now
checking the boxes.
Right. And so I thought, okay, so she really, as I, and I'd always known about unschooling or unschools, but had never really thought about it until I really was going through this existential crisis that I'm experiencing right now on, am I doing something moral or not?
You're an SS officer.
Okay, we don't want to go, what's Godwin's Law? We don't want to start comparing anyone to Hitler.
Just straight to
because it's just going to go to hell at there. But I thought I need to talk to her and find out exactly what they did.
Right.
Well, sure enough, there were no, they did not replicate classes at home. They didn't sit at the dining room table and do math classes and stuff like that. I said, so what did you do? And she said, I read a lot. Okay, now I will grant that she's probably a highly intelligent person.
Right.
But I also will say that I don't know that she's any different than most of her peers. Just that she exhibits high intelligence and critical thinking now. And I'm not sure that we could say that broad run graduates who don't exhibit that wouldn't have if they had gone her route.
Right.
So here's the big thing. So we talked. We had a great conversation. I loved her, the experiences that she described, and I said, so at some point you and your parents chose that you would go to school.
Right.
Why? And it was primarily, I think, in prep for college. Mm-hmm. Okay. College was a goal of
which
theirs.
we do moderately well. I mean, that is a big part of the goal of high school.
But
to the detriment of high school.
It was from the perspective of what the colleges were expecting. So she was fitting into a format that would be easily transferable to the college application process.
Don't make them think too hard, just make them say yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting because colleges actually do not look askance at unschooled students.
Right.
Okay, but that's the result of a lot of research since then. But it wasn't that the school would prepare her for college. It was that she would look better to the colleges if she were more traditional.
Right.
Okay. So here's the thing. I said, so what was your biggest fear or what was your biggest worry about showing up at Broad Run in 9th grade, never having been in a classroom? Now I'll qualify this that she did go to a couple Spanish classes and math classes at Farmwell. But only a couple.
Right.
And it was a strange experience because her classmates would be going, where are you and where are you coming from? Because she wasn't there all day long. She was kind of like a foreign exchange student.
Right.
Yeah. She said she was worried that she would be behind.
Right.
And so I said, so why did you think that? And I'm actually already laughing inside.
Yeah.
Because she goes, because I know that year after year, they've been building on a body of knowledge and skills. Let's just take math. 3rd grade math, 4th grade math, 5th grade math,
right.
6th grade math, and all that. And so I then asked her, what did you find? But before I tell you what she said, so on, what's today? Tuesday? So yesterday,
Yes.
I was over at Broad Run at the library for a summer math refresher session. There were a ton of kids. And believe me, my moral qualms in participating in this were extremely high. But I'm looking at it that the kids generally might be there voluntarily, even though they're trying to fit into, the expectations of their parents and the school. But we had about 30 kids show up. So this pair of brothers comes in, and one of them is definitely really short, okay? The other one looks pretty young, too. He might be a rising 8th grader, definitely not more than a rising 9th grader. But the younger one, I was really curious, and I just sat down with him. I said, so you're here with your brother? What are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm just kind of... And the way I asked it, I was careful not to discount to him that he wasn't there for the refresher.
Right.
But he said, oh, I'm here just to keep him company. And for all I know, we were just babysitters.
Right,
His parents
right.
are like, yeah.
Free
Anyway,
lunch.
yeah.
We're
So,
going out.
a little while later, I sat down with him, and he's doing a geometry packet. And he's going through, he's getting all the answers right. Okay, he's doing volumes. He's doing surface area calculations.
Right.
And so I said, so did you know how to do those based on the information in the packet? Because each section does have the formulas.
Right.
And he said, well, yeah, I mean, and he flipped the page over. The formula for this surface area thing is right here. And then he explained to me how to do it. And I said, okay, if we didn't give you the formula, how would you do it? He said, oh, well, I would just figure out the surface area for each face, each side, he didn't say face, of the cube, add them all together.
Right.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I said, so have you ever done anything like this before? He said, oh, yeah, we just did this. I said, what do you mean? Well, yeah, I think you would call it Math 5. And, of course, I go, every year we get kids in geometry in 9th and 10th grade who have no idea what the Pythagorean Theorem is.
Right.
But they learned it in 5th grade. I know for a fact they learned it in 5th grade.
Yeah.
They also learned how to do volumes, surface areas, all of those things. What's the definition of a line as opposed to a line segment? All of those things.
Are they asked to retain it?
Well, you only retain what you use.
Bro, that's what I mean.
Right.
You know.
No.
Yeah, I can always ask you to retain it. Like, remember that, but if you don't use it,
but
you're
they
gonna
don't
lose
use it again. The next time they use it is many lifetimes later, because I'm sure you
10th grade,
recall
9th grade, yeah.
6th grade is a lifetime, 7th grade is a lifetime, even 11th and 12th grades are lifetimes.
Yeah.
I miss that. I mean, that being at that age where, I mean, even 2 weeks at summer camp,
Yeah.
you could have the romance of the
It's
century.
there. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. That's
Okay.
true.
So
You're really
anyway,
living life at that
But
point.
now, with this kid, I can't predict it as an individual, but I know that all of the kids that are 14, 15 years old sitting next to him have all had this.
All right, but to be fair, if you did, and I'm going to use a poor measure, but it's the easiest poor measure we can go by. If we were to do an age-adjusted IQ score for him versus the average kid in the room, is that kid smarter than the average kid in the room?
Well, I will tell you, I don't know if he's smarter, but
He
his
is.
numeracy skills are superior.
Yeah, he is.
Because when he came up with 96 square inches, as he described, he says, well, it's 4 times 4 is 16, and then you just multiply that by the, and he comes up with 96. And so, yes, his numeracy skills are superior. But, so here's the thing. So then I asked the student going into 9th grade for the first time, or into a classroom for the first time at 9th grade, so where did you stand relative to your peers? Oh God, they knew nothing. She said, I had nothing to worry about. I said, so despite them spending year after year supposedly building upon skills and knowledge in history, math, English.
Were the parents teaching?
No, these are people that sat in classrooms.
No. I'm saying.
Oh, were
I'm
her
saying
parents teaching?
Yes.
No. She was totally self-taught.
So it was just,
She
here's
was
a bunch of
unschooled.
books.
No.
I'll see you in 2 hours.
No.
So she just miraculously could show up and do geometry on her own.
Because she taught it to herself.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what happens if a kid doesn't choose to teach? I mean, now, granted, I am
But
doing
you're
just fine in
assuming-
life. No, I'm doing just fine in life, and I calculate, surface areas of nothing. When I buy paint, we just converted my dining
But
room
you
to an office.
landscape, you
We
paint.
guessed. Yeah, well,
Did you guess correctly?
Yeah.
Was it the end? I mean, did you have some left over? Were you short?
Oh no, you don't come up short. That's that's you learn how to estimate. Well, but that's what I'm saying though is like.
But that's geometry and algebra. How much of that do you remember?
Oh sure, and in terms of
Did
actual.
you go on the internet and look something up?
For that, no. I just have done it enough.
Are there
that I
some
know, but
landscaping
you
things
could,
or
you know.
home improvement projects?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. You can look it up, but
That's-
you don't have any trouble understanding it, right?
That's the Google U that keeps coming up in all these previous
Yeah.
You can get whatever degree you need online for free. The problem is that there's no credentials.
So,
And so
14
how do you
years
demonstrate
ago,
that?
14 years ago, my son moves to LA, 15, fresh out of high school. He gets his first job in the film industry. It's actually quite a choice job. It's working on a film called The Prestige. You might be
Yeah,
familiar
I've
with
heard of
the
it.
director and writer Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan.
Yeah.
Kind of small
Minor
time
guy,
guy.
yeah.
He was really lucky. Well, we had the right connections. So he's just a production assistant. He does get to hang out with Christopher Nolan,
Right.
watching the dailies and all. And I'm just like so envious because he's doing something really creative, something he absolutely loves. From 5 years old, he wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. Okay?
Right.
He's on that track.
Right.
I don't know if he's got that skill, although I'm quite impressed with the stuff he comes up with. But anyways, calls me up one night, says, Dad, okay, we've got to get David Bowie to Denver. He's in the film.
Okay.
Okay. So anyways, and in fact, we got to get quite a few people to Denver. I'm booking hotel rooms. How do I calculate the total room cost if I know the base rate and the tax? Okay, now I know for a fact that just 3 or 4 years earlier, well, actually just a couple because he did algebra too,
Yeah.
they covered that kind of thing.
Right.
Okay, so I jokingly said, who's your Algebra 1 teacher? Which was actually someone that was still at Broad Run.
Right.
And actually I think is a really good teacher as far as teachers go. She was still there. I went and gave her the
I love
business.
that. That was the best shot in this
Yeah.
whole thing. It was really good teacher as far as teachers go. that was the most insulting
Well,
thing
she
of the
did her-
entire
she did her
conversation. Sorry,
job.
I don't mean to. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah,
So,
yeah, great.
So calls the
So I'm
algebra
gonna
1
show
teacher.
up at, I'm going to show up at Broad Run in a couple weeks. And
That's-
imagine
of all the things you thought were rude, that was the only one that was good.
we may cut that.
That was hilarious.
Let me see, where's that thing I signed? So anyways, but here's the thing. I said, well, this is how you do it. It took us 2 minutes, well, less than 2 minutes for him to know it.
Right.
He didn't need to know how to do that when he was 15.
Right.
He needed to know how to do it when he was 19. And he had the resources.
Yeah.
Now, I would have been happier if he'd gone on Google and figured it out himself, but he does do a lot of stuff on his own.
Right.
So and we also have a really good relationship, much of it kind of teacher-student.
Right.
Although he teaches me more stuff nowadays than the other way around. But here's
By
the thing.
the way,
Yeah.
that is one of the most infuriating things I hear teachers say. I learn more from my students than they'll ever learn from me. That's your first sign you need to quit your job and do something
Yeah,
else.
really.
Sorry, back to your thing.
This is
but
a parent
as
speaking.
a parent and with the age,
Well,
he's
it's like-
older and stuff, that's fine.
it's like the
but when you teach freshmen English or history or whatever, and you say that, I have zero confidence in what you're doing.
And I agree. And it's like, see, as a parent, it's like the Mark Twain saying that, I can't remember it exactly, but when I was 13, I thought my father was the stupidest person in the world. But by the time I was 18, I was amazed at how much smarter he'd become.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So, so here's the thing. So this student who, like, the only thing that drove her education, and I'm not going to even say education, her learning,
Right.
was that her mother said, you need to pass this assessment that the county requires for us to keep homeschooling you. Because that's the only legal way you can be unschooled, is to call it homeschool.
Right.
So a significant portion of homeschoolers are really unschoolers.
Right.
Okay. So she did know that she had to do that. She also said that it was really easy to pass.
Yeah.
Now, I would love to see what the assessments look like, so out of curiosity, I'm going to grab them.
I also am
can't
going to go out on
imagine
a
that
limb
they'd
and
be
say that we're
difficult.
talking about a smarter than average person,
But
intelligence-wise.
again, it comes down to, and I'll tell you another thing she said to me as part of this answer, was how much of that results from how she learned compared to how people learn in a classroom, as opposed to, say, innate intelligence. And that's a hard thing to assess. But here's the thing. I said, so what else did you notice was the biggest difference between you and your peers? She said, the biggest thing was when a teacher gave an assignment, the number of hands that went up that asked for clarification on what the expectations were and how many points things were worth. Like, which things were more important to my grade.
Right.
She
What do I
said,
do and not do?
I never had a question.
Yeah.
I already knew how I was going to do it.
Right.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that she was doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And here the right way would only be what the teacher wanted.
Check off the rubric.
But
yeah.
she was only interested in what she would learn. Where her classmates were interested in, and this is her observation, but I would agree with this based on sitting in rows. And also, it's amazing the things you learn when you drive people to debate tournaments or sit on buses
You
with
hear
them.
them talking, yeah.
Yeah, and they forget that you're there.
Yeah.
But they were focused on the extrinsic
Yeah.
She was focused on the intrinsic. The grade did not matter to her.
Grades are one of the worst things we do in school.
And we don't do them well for the most part.
No, but even if we did them well...
But they're inherently...
It,
But so that's why I say I can't say that she was able to do this because she's a higher intelligent person, a greater intelligence, whatever. Is she smarter because she didn't go to classrooms, or just smarter because she was born that way?
and it's probably both.
But,
or it's at least... I'm going to say it's at least the born that way. Because I think I know the student we're talking about and some of the family.
Yeah.
But it's on top of, like, being born with the ability to be intelligent, the capacity to do that, is not the same thing as executing on it.
But see, okay.
And it doesn't mean that no one else could do this or have value in it.
Or that the average person is just taking control of your own life from an early age.
Yeah.
Does that in itself create this level of skill?
But how do you do that with no parents at home? If both parents work?
Well, okay, so this was one of the biggest things I had as I went through this book, because this was like the first book that I read that talked about it in an organized way.
I hate when people talk about school as babysitting, but to an extent we are, especially in lower grades.
Yes.
And so how do you facilitate unschooling a kid if no one's at home?
So I'm getting through like 2/3 of the book, and that is the number one question I have. Again, I question everything I think, and I recognize I'm biased towards this, because even though I sat in classrooms most of my life, I realized I was unschooled. Because you know what I was doing in every single one of those classrooms?
Reading a different book under your desk?
Oh, God, yes. In every class. Yeah. I got in so much trouble, but because at least I think this is why I had a pleasant personality, teachers weren't prone to...
It certainly wasn't good looks.
Kill me, yeah. I know it. That's why I grew the beard. You know what it's like. But anyways. But I was unschooled in that I didn't get anything from school. Now, I didn't find it horrible, so I didn't object to it too much.
Did you go to public school?
Yeah.
K through 12?
Couple of years of Catholic school early on, but I don't remember much about that. But it was K through 12. But it was boring as hell.
Do you use it?
No. And I used nothing from college either. Okay?
Where did you go to college?
Niagara University. I like the architecture.